Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. They never framed our wedding photo. Maybe he knew how temporary I'd be. The image, printed on glossy paper, rests forgotten in a drawer, collecting dust. I pull it out carefully, fingering the edges of the frame that never was. I am Amaka, once a writer brimming with dreams, now reduced to a shadow behind Toby, my husband. The morning light of Lagos filters through the curtains as I stand in the half-empty bedroom we share. Toby is already gone, off to his office, his tie immaculate, his posture confident. I brush a stray lock of hair from my face. I glance at the photo, two young strangers, arms entwined, smiles forced. I hardly recognize that version of myself. Toby stands tall, beaming, his arm protecting me, or so he intended. In the background, guests in designer clothing raise their glasses. The music was carnival-like that day, celebratory. Now the silence in the room is deafening. I fold the image slowly, carefully, as though handling a fragile relic. My thoughts drift back to earlier times. I was fresh out of university, a manuscript in hand, ready to conquer the world with my words. Offers from international magazines, Ethiopian Observer, African Literary Review, had come my way. But when Toby unveiled his tech startup vision, promising to revolutionize Nigeria's fintech scene, I believed in our shared dream. Together, he said, we'll be unstoppable. So I shelved my ambitions. I typed business plans beside him, predicted investor trends, cheered his elevator pitches until my applause echoed louder than my own heartbeat. My reverie is interrupted by a knock at the door. Breakfast is ready, my mother calls from the entrance. She still visits every Sunday, whispering encouragement. She always sensed my hidden sorrow behind forced smiles. I slip the photo back into its drawer and smooth my wrapper. As I walk into the kitchen, the aroma of jollof rice and eggs greets me. "Good morning, my daughter," my mother says, kissing my forehead. "You look thoughtful." I force a smile. "Just remembering something." She nods, pulling out a chair for me. I eat in silence, replaying last night's small argument with Toby. He had teased me, saying my writing was cute, but not practical. The barbs sting. I wonder if he remembers the passion in my eyes when I spoke of literature. I stare at my untouched tea and realize that something inside me refuses to remain still any longer. Something ignites, a spark long dormant. I finish my breakfast and head back to the bedroom. The wedding photo waits for me. But today, instead of tucking it away, I hold it to my chest. My mother's words echo, "You have always been fire, Amaka." I close my eyes, feeling the dust on the photo and the weight of my own regret. I slide the photo back into the drawer, determination rising like the morning sun. Today I will decide what comes next, reclaim my story. I stood in the glass-walled lobby of the conference center, adjusting my skirt. Tonight, the spotlight was on Toby as he prepared to deliver his keynote speech. I hovered by his side, smiling dutifully as crowds murmured, "That's his wife." I was Amaka, but tonight I was just his wife. I forced a gentle smile as Toby strode onto the stage, applause booming. He raised his hand and introduced me, "Everyone meet my wife, Amaka." The audience responded politely, then tuned back to him. Earlier, I spent hours choosing a modest blouse so as not to overshadow him. From my seat on stage, I watched Toby discuss digital banking and venture capital. Journalists scribbled notes, investors nodded. Nobody seemed to care that I existed. My own dreams once sparkled brightly, now they dimmed behind his success. After his speech, guests lined up to congratulate him. Cameras flashed. I trailed behind, offering muted congratulations to strangers praising his vision. A cluster of investors approached him. I waited politely until a tall man said, "Toby, impressive work. Your wife must be proud." Toby smiled. "She supports me every day." I wanted to speak up, "I'm proud too," but he steered the conversation away. I masked my frustration and offered a polite nod, hiding the bitterness twisting inside me. Later, at a networking table, Toby mingled with angel investors. I sipped champagne, pretending interest. My eyes scanned the room, longing for someone to ask how I felt. A small voice of doubt whispered, was I only defined by his achievements? My fingers hovered over my phone, a draft of my secret blog begging to be written. But I suppressed it, reminding myself of my role tonight. Then a familiar face appeared, Miss Tade, the publisher. She approached me quietly, away from Toby's circle. "Amaka, right?" She glanced furtively. I read an anonymous blog post that resonated with me. "Are you the author?" My pulse raced. I opened my mouth, then Toby's voice boomed behind me, "Everyone, let's take a group photo." Miss Tade nodded and backed away. I felt my cheeks burn, but a spark of excitement flickered inside me. At the table, Toby examined me. "Were you talking to someone?" "Just an old friend," I lied. He nodded curtly and returned to his guests. I looked down at my empty glass, my heart heavy, longing to tell him the truth. When the event ended, Toby offered to drop me home. In the Lexus, the Lagos skyline shimmered as dusk fell. He turned to me. "You could have smiled more tonight. You looked uninterested." His criticism stung. I stared out the window, Lagos lights flickering like fragmented dreams. He parked outside our building without a word. "Good night," I said softly. He muttered, "Good night," then closed the door. In the silent elevator, tears welled. I whispered to myself, "I am more than just your wife." I pressed my hand against the mirror, confronting my reflection. Eyes determined, lips trembling. And in that moment, I decided I wouldn't stay invisible much longer. I remember the day my inbox exploded with possibility. 8 months before my wedding, I was packing up my childhood bedroom in Abeokuta, ready to move to Lagos for my first real job as a junior editor at a publishing house. My laptop pinged incessantly, unread messages from international magazines, invitations to submit flash fiction, requests for features. Amaka Ogundil was on the cusp of something extraordinary. Then Toby called, "My startup got angel investment and I need you here. In Lagos. Tonight." Without hesitation, I left my dreams to stand by my betrothed's side. That morning I stared at the screen, heart pounding. One message from AfriHeart Stories read, "We'd love your perspective on contemporary African women writers." Another from Nairobi Review said, "Your sample essay impressed us. Would you like a paid assignment?" My palms sweated. Toby's vision for his fintech app was thrilling too. He called me his content director, but supporting him meant shelving my writing. As I boarded the bus to Lagos, I promised myself it would be only temporary. I would come back to my words once his app launched. In the following weeks, I moved into our rented apartment. Toby worked around the clock. Strategy meetings, pitch decks, investor dinners. I joined him at events, taking notes, drafting press releases under his name. Every evening, I opened a blank document on my laptop but closed it without typing a single word. The inbox of dreams lay open but untouched. Sometimes I read the subject lines, feature acceptance, payment confirmation, and felt a pang of guilt that I'd abandoned what I loved. One late night, after a particularly grueling day, I found Toby asleep at his desk. I gazed at his peaceful face and touched his brow. "You're brilliant," I whispered. In that moment, I believed I was where I belonged, beside him. Yet a small voice inside me asked, would he ever ask if I wanted space to chase my own dreams? The thought unsettled me, but I pushed it away. At breakfast, I learned that his app demo had gone viral among local investors. He clinked his shea butter coffee cup against mine and said, "We're on the brink, Amaka. I wouldn't be here without you." My heart swelled with pride. I smiled and poured him more coffee. Inside, I felt torn, proud of his success, but mourning the silence where my own creativity once thrived. That afternoon, I logged into my email. One message soared above the rest. "Accepted. Your essay on womanhood, published next week." I stared at the screen, stunned. I had submitted it weeks ago, secretly hoping it might never show up. Now, months later, it had been chosen. Toby's notifications popped up on my phone. Another investor call, another milestone. Two worlds collided in my mind. His world of algorithms and venture capital, and mine of stories and ink-stained fingertips. I tapped my desk, heart racing. Could I truly merge them? The inbox of dreams beckoned. I knew then that something inside me was shifting. One day that draft would no longer be buried. But not today. Today I would support Toby's dream. Tomorrow I would chase my own. The dinner party was held in a palatial bungalow in Ikoyi, where crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across marble floors. I felt out of place in my simple blouse and pencil skirt. Toby, in a tailored suit, fluttered through the crowd, greeting potential investors with ease. I stood by the table with hors d'oeuvres, wishing a waiter would spot me and offer a glass of wine. Instead, I was left holding a delicate canopy, mind spinning. Toby greeted his friends. Dunny, the brand strategist, with an aristocratic sneer. Chika, the venture capitalist, with a perpetual smirk. And Neka, a socialite whose laughter sounded like it echoed through an empty hall. They eyed me briefly, then turned back to Toby's anecdotes about seed funding and market share. I sipped water, melting into the background. Dunny leaned in, voice low. So Mrs. Sio's wife, what do you do? I tensed, then smiled politely. I write occasionally. Dunny laughed, low mocking. Occasionally? My mother writes condolence letters on the side occasionally. Tell me, Amaka, who actually hired you? Toby's lips twitched, but he made no move to defend me. I pressed my lips together, heart pounding. I decided to respond. I prefer writing for the soul rather than for convenience, I said, voice steady. The laughter paused. Chica's brow furrowed. Neka's smile wavered. Toby cleared his throat. Amaka's writing is powerful, he said quickly. He faltered, then changed the subject. I forced my smile back and nodded at Dunny. Thank you for your opinion, I replied. The cheers resumed and I retreated deeper into the room. I wandered toward the terrace where cool night air caressed my cheeks. The Lagos skyline glittered like distant stars. I closed my eyes, letting the breeze soothe my racing heart. Behind me, footsteps approached. Dunny stood there, arms crossed. Look, we're just teasing. You know how business circles work. Enough with the dramatics. I faced him, voice quiet but fierce. Mock me all you like, but you don't get to decide my worth. If you had read my blog post, you'd know my words have reached thousands. Dunny's eyes flickered with surprise. Blog post, he echoed. Before he could respond, Chica appeared. Dunny, come back. We have a toast. Dunny hesitated, then left with a final glare. I exhaled, knowing I had staked my claim. I touched my phone in my pocket. My secret blog's URL, the one Dunny hadn't found. Tonight I had passed the dinner party test. I turned back toward the room, ready to face them again. My reflection in the glass revealed a woman who would no longer shrink. Late that night, I crept into our bathroom, closed the door, and flicked on the light. My reflection stared back, dark eyes rimmed with fatigue, tense shoulders slumped forward. The wedding photo I held in my palm felt heavier than ever. I perched on the edge of the bathtub, watching my reflection. Amaka, the woman who had once bristled with purpose. Who are you? I whispered to the mirror. The silence tasted like betrayal. I turned on the faucet and let cool water splash onto my face. My reflection blurred with steam. I felt tears rise, tears for the abandoned dreams, for every time I'd silenced my own voice to cheer for Toby. I used to be somebody, I told the mirror, voice trembling. Now I barely recognize her. I traced the contours of my face, searching for the spark I once had. In that moment I saw a flicker of something, defiance, longing, a burning ember that refused to die. I sat cross-legged on the bathroom tiles, cradling a steaming mug of peppermint tea. I opened my laptop and stared at a blank document. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as memories flooded back. The excitement of writing my first short story, the thrill of acceptance emails, the pride when my words moved strangers. I typed the first line. They never framed my wedding photo because he knew how temporary I'd be. Then I paused, reading it aloud. The words felt like truth. The keystrokes felt like rebellion. As I wrote, my mind shaped each sentence, each confession. I wrote of the sting when Toby introduced me as just my wife. I wrote of the dinner party, Dunny's sneer, the loneliness in a room full of people. I wrote of the moment I realized my voice didn't belong behind his shadow. Paragraph by paragraph, the story poured out until dawn spilled through the blinds. When I finished, I leaned back and looked at the screen. The word count blinked, 2,134. I glanced at the clock, 4:37 a.m. Exhaustion tugged at me, but excitement thrummed through my veins. I saved the document under a pen name, Oluwa Amaka, the shadow writer. I tapped publish, and exhaled, watching as the post uploaded. The screen displayed a confirmation. Your article is now live. I trudged back to the bedroom, heart pounding. Toby lay asleep, face peaceful in the lamplight. I watched him for a moment. I felt both love and regret. I whispered into the darkness, this is for me now. As I slid into bed, sleep claimed me, dreams filled with possibility. In the mirror that night, I had promised to stop being a shadow. And I meant it. Morning light filtered into our bedroom, illuminating Toby's back as he lay on one side of the bed, phone in hand. I stirred, heart racing. My article had gone live under the name, Oluwa Amaka, at dawn. I'd published it to a small network of woman-centered blogs, unsure if anyone would read it. Now, curiosity knotted in my stomach. I crept out of bed and tiptoed to the study, our shared workspace. My laptop sat open, notifications pouring in. Comments, likes, retweets. I held my breath and clicked, View Analytics. Within hours, the post had garnered thousands of views. Women from Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, and beyond praised the raw honesty. You have my life story, wrote one. I thought I was alone, wrote another. The message thread swelled with support, shares, and requests to know the author. My pulse hammered. I clicked view comments again. One comment read, "You're amazing. Thank you." Another, "I needed this today." The story, "When Your Husband Thinks You're His Shadow," blazed across social media like wildfire. I exhaled, feeling a rush I hadn't felt in years. I was alive again. But at home, Toby was oblivious. He emerged from the bedroom in a crisp shirt and jeans, yawning. "Good morning, sleepyhead," he said, pecking me on the cheek. I smiled, heart pounding. "Morning," I replied. My phone buzzed again. My mother had texted, "Amaka, I am so proud." I covered my screen as Toby poured coffee. He glanced at me quizzically. "You look different." I hid my excitement. "Just tired," I said. He nodded and focused on his shoes. Then he left for a meeting. I opened my laptop, refreshing the analytics page. Numbers climbed rapidly. 5,000 views, 10,000, comments multiplied. My secret was out, but the warm flood of validation felt nourishing. At noon, I received an email from the Lagos Literary Review. "Bravo! Your piece has sparked important conversations. Can we interview you?" My breath caught. I blinked. "Interview? Today?" "As long as you agree to remain anonymous," they wrote. My hand trembled as I typed, "Yes." I hit send and sank back in my chair, trembling. By evening, word had spread to mainstream media. Teasers on entertainment channels hinted at a mysterious blogger speaking truth to power. Men on Twitter had begun speculating who Oluwa Amaka was. Was she a celebrity wife? A socialite? Rumors swirled. I read each rumor with a mix of dread and exhilaration. When Toby returned that night, he looked fatigued but content. "Our investor from Kenya approved the next funding round," he said, grinning. I mustered my own smile. "That's great news." He nodded, resting his hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" he asked softly. I leaned into him, swallowing the truth. "I'm fine." His lips brushed my forehead, but I was spinning inside, electrified by the power of my own words. That night, I lay awake, listening to the hum of the city beyond our window. The phone in my lap buzzed continuously. Messages of support from strangers, offers to speak on podcasts, requests for book deals. I felt alive, unstoppable. I closed my eyes, heart filled with possibilities. Tomorrow Toby would learn the truth. But tonight I celebrated the anonymous post that shook the internet and changed me forever. The next morning the living room was empty. Sunlight slanted across the couch where I had slept on top of my laptop, exhausted but elated. I yawned and stretched, then grabbed my phone. Notifications had surged overnight. CNN Africa featured my post as viral sensation, and podcasts were requesting interviews. I scrolled through comments. "We need her voice. Where is she?" Thousands of hearts and shares bloomed across screens. Toby emerged from the bedroom, freshly showered. He blinked at my expression. "You look glowing," he said, pouring me coffee. I sipped, grateful but cautious. "Thanks," I replied. I watched him, wondering if he sensed anything shift between us. He glanced at my laptop, still displaying an open analytics dashboard. "Anything interesting on there?" I closed it gently. "No, just work emails." He nodded and kissed my cheek. By midday, I joined a prearranged Skype interview with Global Voices Dakar. Masked by my pen name, voice slightly altered by a low-tech filter. As I spoke about silenced women and the importance of owning one's narrative, I watched Toby's unread texts pile up. I sensed his curiosity. When I hung up, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from local radio stations offering airtime. Toby entered the study. "Your blog is trending everywhere," he said flatly. "People are saying it changed lives." His tone was neutral, but I detected something beneath. Perhaps suspicion, perhaps pride. I met his gaze. "I wrote it," I said simply. His eyebrows rose. "You wrote it?" "Yes," I nodded. He exhaled, shaking his head. "We need to talk." My heart pounded. We sat on the couch, the air thick. Toby cleared his throat. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I needed to find my own voice," I said. He looked away. "You undermined me. You used our resources, this apartment, this laptop, without telling me." His eyes were hurt. My own hurt flared, hurt that he believed my aspirations belonged to him. "I did it for me," I whispered. "So I could remember who I was." Silence stretched between us. He sighed. "This changes things," he said, crossing his arms. "I'm proud, but I'm angry. Angry that you didn't trust me." I bit my lip, tears welling. I was afraid, I admitted. Afraid you'd ask me to stop. He studied me, then took a deep breath. I don't want to lose you, he said. But I can't pretend this isn't serious. He left the room and I sank onto the couch, trembling. That evening I returned to my laptop, responding to interview invitations. Each request felt like validation, a reminder of my worth beyond Toby's shadow. I typed a reply to Nigeria Women's Forum. I'd be honored to speak. My phone buzzed, Toby's number. I stared at it, the decision heavy on my chest. I swiped to open. He typed, "Can we talk over dinner?" I exhaled, replying, "Yes." As I prepared rice and stew, my mind flew with possibilities. Tomorrow our world would shift again. For now, I embraced the public praise even as private silence settled between us. The black granite countertops gleamed as I chopped onions and peppers for dinner. My hands trembled, not from the knife, but from anticipation. Toby had texted at noon, "Dinner at home, 7 p.m. sharp. We need to talk." My mind whirled with possibilities. Had he discovered more of my blog's identity? Was our marriage unraveling? I tried to breathe, reminding myself, I had changed. I wouldn't be silent. At 6:45 p.m. I lit candles in the dining room. The white linen tablecloth billowed slightly in the evening breeze. I placed a plate of jollof rice, sautéed spinach, and grilled chicken before each seat. I checked my reflection in the mirror, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, eyes determined. I refused to shrink. Toby arrived precisely at 7. His suit was unbuttoned, tie loose. He kissed my cheek. "Smells amazing," he said quietly. I nodded, gesturing to the table. He sat. A moment of awkward silence passed. I took a sip of water, studying his expression, taut, unreadable. He cleared his throat. "I read your interview on Nigeria Women's Forum," he said, voice low. "You spoke about women hiding behind their husbands. I got the message." My heart lurched. "But they didn't know you were speaking about me," he continued. "You used my name without permission." My mouth went dry. "I didn't name you," I replied softly. He leaned back. "Your words went viral without you clarifying it was your story. Everyone thinks I treated you like a doormat." I shook my head. "I wanted to speak for all women. Yours and mine. I didn't think it would hurt you." Toby's eyes flashed. "You never asked. You think I'd have approved? That I'd have wanted you in the spotlight?" His voice cracked. I stared at the flickering candlelight and took a breath. I wrote from my truth. My voice trembled but held firm. He exhaled sharply. Truth cuts both ways. He reached for his plate, stabbing rice with his fork. I watched him eat in silence, the tension coiling around us. My appetite vanished. After a moment he said, "There's someone who wants to meet you." I blinked. "Who?" He exhaled. "Miss Tate. She called today. Wants to discuss a book deal. She likes your perspective. She said she knows your identity." Heat flushed my cheeks. "You gave her my number?" I asked, voice rising. He nodded slowly. "She found me first, through a mutual friend. I didn't want to shield you." I swallowed, surprised. "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked away. "I didn't want to influence you." My breath caught. He wanted me to decide for myself. The room felt both suffocating and electric. I set down my fork. "I need time to think." Toby nodded, lowering his gaze. We finished the meal in near silence, the candles casting long shadows on the walls. After dinner he hugged me awkwardly. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. Then he left. I sat at the table, candles guttering. My thoughts raced. A publisher's interest, my dreams beckoning, Toby's conflicted pride and hurt. The dinner had been dangerous, each word a blade. But in the aftermath I realized, I would no longer hide. Tomorrow I would call Miss Tate back. For tonight, I sat with my fear and excitement, ready to embrace whatever came next. My phone chimed at dawn. I read the email from Miss Tate, subject line book deal inquiry. My heart pounded. She wanted to meet Oluwa Amaka in person, promising editorial support and 6 figures in advance. My palms sweated. I reread the message. "I've never been more convinced a story needs to be told. Will I say yes?" After breakfast, I texted Toby, "We need to talk about the Tate offer." He replied, "Let's meet at 5 p.m. in the study." The hours crawled by. I rehearsed my response. Yes, but only under certain conditions. My anonymity maintained until publication, editorial control over my own story, and a write-up schedule that didn't interfere with Toby's schedule. I drafted my terms in a note app but hesitated to send them. At lunchtime my mother called. Child, I saw your interview. Your mother is so proud. I closed my eyes. Mom, it's complicated. I have to meet someone about a book deal. She clapped, but I heard concern. Be careful. Not all offers are what they seem. The afternoon sun beat down as I walked to the study. Toby waited behind his desk, arms crossed. You look nervous, he said. I nodded. They want a memoir. Full story, marriage, betrayal, triumph. His gaze sharpened. You're going public. I exhaled. That's the only way to claim my voice. He stood pacing. If you publish, people will know it's about me. They'll think I treated you like crap. I met his gaze. Some think that already. He stopped. If you do this, it could destroy me. I felt tears prick. Maybe it should. He folded his hands. What terms do you want? I steeled myself. Full creative control, anonymity until book launch, and a release date that doesn't conflict with your company's IPO presentation. He hesitated, then nodded. Agree. But if you leak my name before publication, we're done. I swallowed. I agree. Relief washed over me. Later I emailed Miss Tade. I accept. Let's talk details. Her prompt reply arrived. Wonderful. Send me your availability. I felt lightheaded. My phone buzzed. Toby's name again. He texted, dinner tonight? I want to celebrate. I paused, smiling. Yes. As I walked back, my steps felt lighter, freer. After months in Toby's shadow, I was stepping into the light on my own terms. The study was bathed in golden afternoon light as I poured tea for Toby. He arrived with urgency, suit jacket flapping behind him. He sank into the leather chair across from me, folding his hands. We need to talk about the book deal. I nodded, heart fluttering. I sent my terms. Miss Tate agreed. I lifted my teacup. Great. The silence stretched heavy. Finally he spoke. If you publish this book, you ruin me. My eyes widened. Explain. He exhaled sharply. You're exposing our marriage, my flaws. The world will see me as a villain. Investors will lose trust. My startup could collapse. I pressed my lips together. I own my story. Your reputation isn't mine to protect. He leaned forward. Amaka, I built a life. If you expose everything, you make me look weak. You're selfish. My throat tightened. So my experience is inconvenient? He slammed his hand on the desk. You made your choice. Now live with consequences. I refilled his teacup in mine, willing calm. I believe truth matters more than convenience. He stood abruptly. You're not the naive girl I married. I rose, meeting his gaze. I never was. His jaw clenched. If you publish, I'm finished. My pulse hammered. I can't live in silence anymore. He stared at me, hurt and fury warring in his eyes. Then he turned and left without another word. I sank into the chair, tea growing cold. Memories flooded, our wedding vows, his promise to cherish me, my promise to support him. Now it felt like he had held me prisoner. My phone pinged. Miss Tade, book launch date is set, October 5th. I swallowed. October 5th. That was only 4 months away. 4 months for Toby's investors to discover the truth. 4 months for our life to unravel. I texted my mother. Toby tried to stop me from publishing. He said he'd leave me. Her reply was immediate. He's afraid. Stand firm. I closed my eyes. Toby had given me an ultimatum. Publish and lose everything, including him, or stay silent and lose myself. I pressed my palm to my chest, feeling my heartbeat echo my decision. The walls of our study felt tighter. I exhaled, mind made up. I would publish no matter the cost. I arrived at my mother's house before sunset. The familiar scent of pepper soup and tilapia filled the air. My mother stood on the porch, arms open. Her warm smile comforted me, but I knew I needed more than comfort. Mama, I whispered, hugging her. She guided me inside where the living room was strewn with childhood mementos. My old story drafts pinned on a corkboard, a dusty typewriter in the corner, photographs of me at school assemblies reciting poems. Each artifact reminded me of who I once was. We sat on the sofa. Tell me everything, Mama said, eyes gentle. I recounted the dinner with Toby, the publisher's offer, his ultimatum. My voice trembled as I explained how he demanded I remain invisible. Mama nodded knowingly. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small packet of incense, lighting it. The smoke curled upward as she spoke. You've always been fire, child. Stop letting anyone tell you to stay cold. I stared at her. But if I publish, he'll leave me. He's convinced me I'm destroying him. She placed a hand on mine. A man who loves you wouldn't ask you to be invisible. If he can't handle your light, let him step aside. Tears pricked my eyes. But love doesn't mean destroying the person you love, I whispered. Mama's gaze strengthened. You need a place to breathe, an escape room of your own soul where you can write without fear. I swallowed. I want that. But our apartment. I can't write there now. Mama smiled. Come live with me temporarily. Use my study. Write freely. I'll handle breakfast and dinner. My chest tightened with gratitude. But Toby, he'll notice. She squeezed my hand. Let him notice. Better to face him with strength than remain suffocated. That night I packed a small bag, laptop, notebooks, favorite pens. Mama watched, her eyes proud. You're reclaiming yourself, she said. I hugged her tightly. Thank you. She patted my back. Now go. Write your truth. As I closed the door behind me, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. I was stepping into an escape room of my own making, one filled with possibility and courage. My mother's study was bathed in soft glow from a brass lamp. The walls lined with bookshelves felt like guardians of my soul. I sat at her antique desk, drafting my manuscript's introduction. The keyboard clicked beneath my fingers, each tap liberating. Yet outside these walls, my world was unraveling. Word of my book deal had leaked to the press. Online trolls scourged social media with venom. Accusations that I was a fame seeker, a gold digger. Headlines read, "Wife betrays billionaire husband for profit." I woke to emails calling me ungrateful, attention-seeking, and traitor. My heart thudded each time I checked notifications. Toby's name trended alongside mine, investors tweeting their doubts. The startup's value dipped. Messages from concerned colleagues poured in. Are you okay? We hear things are rough. Is marriage salvageable? The pressure crushed me. I closed my laptop, tears blurring the screen. Mama entered, carrying ginger tea. How are you, sweetie? She asked, voice soothing. I shook my head. I'm scared. The trolls, the investors, Toby's silence. Mama placed a hand on my shoulder. You're telling a vital story. People needed to hear it. Don't let fear silence you now. I exhaled and sipped the tea, spicy warmth grounding me. I opened my manuscript again. My pen name, Amaka, carried the weight of thousands of women who saw themselves in my words. I finished chapter 7, leaning back, exhausted but proud. Word count, 3,572. I needed 10 more chapters before the October deadline. My pace had to accelerate. At 3 p.m., Mama interrupted with news. Your brother called. He discovered a rumor that Toby's investors are planning to pull funding if you proceed. I pressed my palms to my face. I can't let that happen. Mama's eyes softened. You can't control their actions, only your own. Focus on writing. I nodded, trying to steady my breath. As dusk fell, I returned to the apartment to collect a few personal items. The doorman eyed me curiously. Heading to your mother's again, ma'am? I nodded. Yes. I'll be back in a few weeks. I sighed. Up the elevator, I paused at our floor. The hallway light flickered, familiar, comforting. I touched the frame hanging by the door, a wedding gift I'd inscribed with our anniversary. I hesitated, then placed a post-it on it. Be back soon. I'll return once I know my worth. I stepped away and continued to Mama's house. That night, I sat at the desk, writing until my fingers cramped. The trolls' voices echoed in my mind, but I pressed on. Each paragraph was a triumph, my story taking shape despite the panic outside. When I finally collapsed into bed, exhaustion lulled me to sleep. Tomorrow I would face the trolls again, face the investors, and keep writing. My launch date loomed, but so did my truth, and I was ready. I woke to my phone buzzing. My inbox flooded with messages from editors, producers, and strangers thanking me for my courage. But among them, one email stood out. Subject line, a lifeline from Kampala. I hesitated, then clicked. Dear Amaka, I'm a young student in Uganda. I was considering ending my life last week. Then I read your post. Gave me hope. Please don't stop speaking. You saved me. I stared at the screen, tears streaming. My breath caught. I had thought my words were small, quiet whispers in a digital void. But this was proof they mattered. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees. The past weeks had been a storm. Toby's ultimatum, trolls' hatred, investors waffling. I felt myself break beneath the weight. I had nearly typed, I can't do this. But that email, that single voice from Uganda, shattered my despair. I pressed my palm to my heart, warmth spreading. Mama appeared at the door, eyes red. Are you okay? She asked, sitting beside me. I held out the email. She read it, nodding. You see? You have to keep going. I exhaled, tears still falling. I don't know if I'm strong enough. She took my hand. You already are. This is why you write. This is your purpose. I spent the morning drafting chapter 14, my near breakdown, fear of failure, and determination to continue. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered. In the margins, I scribbled notes about including the Ugandan girl's story as an epigraph, her resilience a beacon. By afternoon, I lay on the couch, mind and body exhausted. My phone buzzed, Toby calling. I stared at the name, heart thudding. Should I answer? I closed my eyes and whispered, I am strong enough. I tapped accept. His voice was quiet. Are you okay? I paused. Yes, I replied, voice steadier than I felt. I want to tell you something important. He listened as I recounted the email from Uganda. I heard a soft intake of breath. I didn't realize the impact, he said. You saved someone's life. I nodded, tears coming again. I had to keep going. He was silent for a moment, then said, I'm proud of you. I'm so sorry I made you feel invisible. My heart fluttered. Thank you. We spoke then of nothing and everything, his apologies, my fears, our future. It was not easy, but it was honest. By evening's end, I felt lighter. I returned to Mama's study, determined to finish my next chapter. Flicking on the lamp, I placed the Ugandan girl's email on the desk. I typed, for those whose voices are unheard, this is for you. Then I wrote, pouring every ounce of hope and pain into every sentence. When I reached the final word, I exhaled, trembling but triumphant. I would not break. Not this time. October 5th dawned gray and humid. Mother warned storms were coming, literal and metaphorical. I arrived at the bookstore early, dressed in a simple Ankara print dress and minimal makeup. My pen name was displayed on the banner, Alyawa Amaka. The line outside snaked around the block. Supporters, curious onlookers, even skeptics lined up. My heart pounded. Inside, balloons and posters filled the space. A small stage held a podium draped in gold fabric. Miss Tade, radiant in a bright Kent gown, stood center stage. Welcome, she declared. Today we celebrate courage, resilience, and a new voice for African women. Applause roared. I stood backstage, cheeks burning. Suddenly, security whispered, protesters outside. I peered through the window. A group held signs reading Walk Away from Toby and Fame Over Family. Confusion erupted into tension. Miss Tate noticed and asked, Are they expected? I shook my head. My stomach twisted. As the protesters chanted, a media frenzy erupted. Cameras zoomed in, reporters shouted questions. Is this about your husband? Do you regret publishing? The bookstore manager approached me, panic in his eyes. Should we cancel? I clenched my fists, heart racing. No. We proceed. Miss Tate introduced me. I stepped onto the stage, mic in trembling hand. The crowd fell silent. Thank you all for coming, I began. I know there are mixed feelings today. I paused, scanning the faces, supporters cheering, protesters glaring. My story is not just about marriage. It's about finding a voice when you've been silenced. A thunderclap boomed outside. The rain began pounding against windows, echoing the storm inside me. Protesters burst in, drenched, chanting. Security tried to block them, but the crowd surged. One man jumped onto a chair and bellowed, You betrayed your husband. Shame on you. My heart hammered. I gripped the podium. Please, I said, voice steady despite adrenaline, I wrote from my truth. No one is perfect. If you cannot accept that, I understand. But I will not apologize for speaking out. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some scowled, some cheered. Miss Tate joined me, placing a calming hand on my shoulder. Let's continue, she said firmly. I inhaled, then continued my speech, each word resonating. Failure is not falling down, it's refusing to rise. I choose to rise. Applause thundered. Protesters hesitated, some dismayed. A sudden crash. Lightning struck a transformer nearby, plunging the room into darkness. Gasps filled the space. Hearts pounded in the dark. I heard Miss Tate exhale. We waited as seconds stretched. Then emergency lights flickered on. The crowd, no longer divided by chaos, clapped for our resilience. I closed my eyes, letting the tumult wash over me. The storm outside mirrored the storm I'd endured. Yet I stood firm. When my speech ended, the bookstore manager congratulated me. Cameras snapped photos. The rain tapered off. As I exited, a young woman approached, drenched but smiling. Your words saved me, she whispered before disappearing into the night. My heart soared. Despite protests and panic, I had spoken my truth. The storm raged, but I had not yielded. Tonight I celebrated more than a book launch. I celebrated freedom, freedom to stand in my own light, come what may. The event space thrummed with anticipation. Chairs arranged in neat rows faced a simple stage. Media cameras, sound technicians, and eager fans clustered near the front. Everyone knew today was not just a reading, it was a declaration. I smoothed my Ankara-wrapped skirt and glanced at my reflection in the mirrored wall, eyes bright, posture poised. Today I would say what needed saying. Miss Tate took the stage first, introducing me to the crowd as the voice of a generation of women who refused to be silenced. Then she smiled and whispered, "It's your moment." I stepped forward, the mic cool beneath my fingers. I looked at the sea of faces, women nodding, men shifting uncomfortably, skeptics waiting for a slip. I inhaled, steadying my voice. For years, I began, I was called a failure. Failure isn't when you fall. It's when you forget you can stand. The room was silent, hanging on my every word. My heart pounded, but I felt a calm resolve. I married a man who told me I was just his wife. He didn't know I was a writer, that I had dreams bigger than his shadow. A murmured gasp rippled through listeners. I paused, letting the weight of that truth settle. I continued, when I wrote under a pen name I was frightened. I feared losing everything, my marriage, my security, my identity. But then I realized, if I didn't speak I would lose myself. My voice cracked slightly but I didn't falter. So I published and I found out I was not alone. I saw tears in the eyes of some women. I found out that silence kills and speaking resurrects. And so today I stand before you unashamed. I lifted my chin. To every woman told she is nothing without a man, feel that spark in your chest. That spark is your story begging to be told. Don't let anyone extinguish it. Applause thundered, rising to a crescendo. I let the moment wash over me, letting their affirmation fuel my confidence. Then I lowered my voice. Some have called me selfish, ungrateful, even traitorous. But tell me this, which is worse, truth or lies? The audience leaned forward. I could see their reverence, their shared pain, their hope. I recited a passage from my book. When your worth is measured by someone else's success, you forget how to measure yourself. The room held its breath. When I finished, silence reigned for a heartbeat before the crowd erupted. The standing ovation rolled through like waves on a shore. Cameras flashed, capturing every triumphant second. As I left the stage, Miss Tate hugged me. That was legendary, she whispered. I closed my eyes, letting tears slip. This was the mic drop moment I had dreamed of. A moment of raw honesty, a moment that would live on in videos, hashtags, and hearts around the world. Tonight I had stolen the spotlight. And I would never surrender it again. Clips of last night's speech flooded social media before sunrise. By morning, my name trended under hashtags like hashtag Amaka Unleashed and hashtag Voice of the Shadow. News outlets dissected my every sentence. Talk shows replayed my mic drop moment on loop. Strangers on the streets recognized me. Women smiled, approached, and hugged me. My heart swelled with a mixture of exhilaration and disbelief. At breakfast with Mama, my phone buzzed incessantly. Interview requests, panel invitations, invites to speak at conferences in Johannesburg, Cairo, and Nairobi. I scrolled through hundreds of new followers on every platform. The momentum was undeniable. I sipped my tea trying to steady myself. Mama placed a hand on mine. "This is your moment," she said. "Own it." Later that morning, I arrived at Ikeja Mall for a surprise visit to a bookstore featuring my book. Fans lined up for photos, some holding tears in their eyes. I signed copy after copy, each one a token of solidarity. A teenage girl handed me a hand-lettered banner. "Amaka, you showed me how to stand." I hugged her, feeling a lump in my throat. But with the spotlight came scrutiny. A viral video clip showing Toby watching my speech on a phone surfaced online. Comments speculated about his reaction. Some sympathetic, others mocking. Headlines read "Power Couple in Crisis" and "Is Toby Furious?" My phone buzzed with texts. "Is your marriage over? Did you break him?" I ignored them, focusing on gratitude for the thousands who shared my story. At noon, I joined a TEDx Abuja interview. The host asked, "Were you ever afraid you'd lose yourself in his shadow forever?" I smiled softly. "Yes. But I found my way out by writing my truth." The audience cheered. Later, I appeared on Arise News. The anchor asked, "What do you say to critics who call you a traitor to your husband?" My reply was measured. I say that truth is not betrayal. Love should not be conditional on silence. That evening, I returned home to our apartment. Toby was waiting in the living room, arms crossed. The atmosphere crackled. I laid my bag down. He gestured toward the TV where a morning show replayed my interview. "You've become a public figure overnight," he said quietly. I nodded. "I have." He ran a hand through his hair. "I watched you on TV. You were amazing. I never expected it." My chest fluttered, emotion and relief. "Thank you." He hesitated. "But our world has changed. Investors posted you online demanding explanations. I'm dealing with it." I bit my lip. "I know. I'm sorry." He sighed. "I'm proud but I'm scared." Our eyes met, raw vulnerability crackling between us. I crossed the room and took his hand. "I'll be careful," I said. "But I need this spotlight." He squeezed my hand. "Just don't forget us." I leaned in and kissed his forehead. "I won't." As I walked toward the window, city lights danced below. I inhaled, feeling the weight of the spotlight and the warmth of Toby's presence. Tonight, I realized that living in the light didn't mean living alone. I would shine, and take him with me if he chose to stay. Toby's phone buzzed nonstop that week. Investor calls, board meetings, crisis management texts. "Is it true your wife is overshadowing you? What's your side of this story? Investors are concerned about your leadership." Every ping felt like a blow. One morning I arrived at our apartment to find Toby slumped on the couch, laptop open, brow furrowed. I placed my bag down. "How are you?" He didn't look up. "Lost $5 million in funding," he muttered. My heart clenched. "I'm so sorry." He exhaled bitterly. "Your story triggered a backlash. Investors worry I can't control my personal life." I knelt beside him. "I didn't mean for that to happen. But your success doesn't require me to stay silent." He shook his head. "You gave them ammunition." I bit my lip, choosing my words. "They already saw me as invisible. I made my voice heard and they reacted." He ran a hand through his hair. "I thought I was building a partnership. Now they see us as competing brands." His stress became palpable. Sleepless nights, rushed coffee, strained smiles. He leaned into his work obsessively, but the world moved faster. Headlines hailed me as a feminist icon, while labeling him a tech boss who underestimated his wife. The contrast cut deep. One afternoon I suggested a weekend getaway to Abadan. "You need rest," I said. He looked at me weary. "Rest? I can't rest while we're bleeding investors." He slammed a magazine on the table. Its cover read, "Why Businessmen Can't Support Women," with my photo. I gasped. "That's unfair." He exhaled. "No one cares. They think I'm the villain." I closed the magazine. "Hearts and minds change. You can regain trust." He shook his head. "Maybe not." That night, I lay awake listening to Toby cough in the other room. My guilt gnawed. I silently vowed to stand by him even as he stumbled. In the morning, I woke early and brewed his favorite ginger tea. I placed it by his bedside. He stirred and reached for the cup, bewildered. "You didn't have to. You've supported me," I whispered. "Now let me support you." He sipped, eyes watery. "I don't know how to handle this." I slid onto the bed beside him. "We face it together." He exhaled slowly, then nodded. "Together." We spent the day drafting a joint statement. My gratitude to supporters, his apology for the collateral damage. We planned a charity event showcasing his app's potential for female entrepreneurs, merging our worlds. By evening, photos circulated of us side by side. Me in a simple blouse, him in a tailored jacket, arms around each other. Many fans praised our unity. Some investors backed off from their criticisms. Toby's fall wasn't reversed overnight, but he took the first steps toward recovery. I realized that rising in the spotlight didn't have to mean leaving him behind. Together we would redefine success. 2 months after launch day, my novel sales skyrocketed. When Your Husband Thinks You're His Shadow topped bestseller lists across Nigeria, Kenya, and beyond. Oprah Winfrey's book club honed in. Messages from her producers flooded my inbox. A TEDx invitation from Cairo arrived. I flew to Accra for a literary festival panel. Every city greeted me with eager fans, journalists, and fellow writers seeking my insight. Miss Tate visited me in Lagos for celebratory lunch. We sat at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the lagoon. She raised her champagne glass. "To you, Amaka. To courage, to truth, to storytelling." I clinked glasses, warmth blooming in my chest. "Thank you for believing in me." She smiled. The world needs your voice. Now we negotiate the film rights. My heart pounded. Film? She nodded. Major studio interest. They want to turn your memoir into a feature film, call it a biopic capturing your journey. I sat back, astonished. Film? Cinemas? Voices around the world seeing my story on screen? I swallowed. That's incredible. She reached across the table. You deserve it. What do you want? I considered. Maintain creative control, cast a strong African director, ensure the story remained authentic. She scribbled notes. We'll do it your way. Back home I found Toby working late in the study. The tension between us had eased. We had found a new balance. I told him the news, film deal. His face lit up. That's crazy, amazing. He pulled me into a hug. I'm so proud of you. I melted into his arms, feeling the weight of gratitude and love. That weekend, we flew to Johannesburg for a promotional tour. Each event felt surreal. Signing copies for crowded queues, speaking on stages, listening as women told me how my story changed their lives. In each city, something clicked. My journey was far larger than two people. It was a movement. My words had sparked conversations about marriage, identity, empowerment across Africa. One evening in Johannesburg, I spoke at a gala. Stories shape us. When we tell them, we reclaim our power. The audience stood in ovation. As I left the stage, an actress approached me, her eyes shining. I want to play your role, she said. I nodded, tears in my eyes. We discussed vision, authenticity, and the need to amplify African stories. Returning to Lagos, I walked through the neighborhood, greeting vendors and neighbors. They all knew my name. Children waved. I felt the weight of their hopes. That night, I lay in bed, phone lighting up with congratulatory texts. I gazed at Toby sleeping beside me, remembering how far we'd come, from a marriage on the brink to a partnership forged in truth. I reached for his hand. In the hush of the night, I whispered, "Thank you for letting me shine." He held my hand tightly. "Thank you for bringing light to us both." I found the envelope on the coffee table that morning. It was thick, cream-colored, and unsealed. My name was printed in Toby's neat handwriting. Curious, I tore it open and removed the letter. My dearest Amaka, I have lingered on these pages trying to find words that match my heart. When I first saw your words, I was angry and afraid, for myself, for us. I thought your truth would destroy everything we built. But in facing that storm, I found a truth of my own, that I loved you not for your silence but for your voice. I'm sorry I tried to steal your light out of fear it would blind me. I've lost investments and reputation, but none of that matters compared to losing you. You have shown me the beauty of standing in my own light, of letting others speak even when it hurts. You are more than just my wife. You are your own woman, your own story. I don't deserve you, but I choose you. I choose to stand by you, to support your dreams, and to learn from your courage. Thank you for loving me enough to risk it all. I hope one day I can be worthy of standing beside you, not under your shadow but under our shared sky. Yours always, Toby. I collapsed onto the couch, tears flowing. The weight on my chest dissolved. I folded the letter carefully and carried it to Mama's study, eager to share. She enveloped me in a hug when I entered. "He wrote?" she asked softly. I handed her the letter. She read silently, then placed a gentle hand on my cheek. "He has grown," she said. I nodded, emotion brimming. I spent the day writing a short response, never intending to keep the letter private. I posted a photo of it on social media with a caption, "Love grows in light, not in shadows." Within minutes, hearts and comments poured in. This is true love, respect, a beautiful reconciliation. That evening, Toby returned. I held up his letter. "You did this?" He nodded. "I couldn't stay silent," he said. I realized my insecurity was my own prison. I pressed the letter to my chest. "Thank you." He took me in his arms. We stood together silently, the evening's glow soft on our faces. In that final letter, Toby had given me a gift. His vulnerability, his apology, his commitment. It was a promise that we would face the future together, with both of our voices heard. As we walked hand in hand to the balcony, I felt the dawn of a new chapter. The auditorium hummed with anticipation. Rows of chairs filled with young faces looked up as I walked onto the stage. My heart raced under my encore dress. Today I spoke not as a best-selling author but as Amaka, an ordinary woman who once hid in a husband's shadow. I steadied the microphone. "Good morning," I began. "I am Amaka Ogundiel. 10 years ago no one knew my name." Gasps and curious glances spread through the crowd of teenagers and young adults. Their eyes gleamed with expectation. I have a story about an unframed wedding photo, a voice stifled by doubt, and a journey to reclaim myself. I described the dusty photograph tucked away, the snap decision to start a secret blog, and the ripple effect it caused. A boy in the front row raised his hand. "Did you believe anyone would read it?" he asked. I smiled. I thought I was invisible. I wrote as if shouting into darkness. A ripple of laughter passed among them. Yet that post ignited a fire. Thousands read it. One girl from Uganda wrote, "Your words saved me. If I had stayed silent, she might not be here today." I paused. Each of you has a voice that matters. We're often told to stay quiet, told our dreams clash with someone else's success. But your truth holds power. A teenage girl wiped away a tear. "Were you afraid?" she asked. I met her gaze. Every day. But I learned that speaking truth matters more than fear. Whispers of assent swept the room. I continued, "When I published my memoir, I risked everything, my marriage, security, identity. But I found something priceless, self-worth." The audience nodded, moved by the honesty. I lowered my voice. "If you feel invisible, stand up. Write your story even if it challenges those you love. Show the world who you are." Silence followed, then thunderous applause erupted. Standing ovation, cheers, camera flashes. I bowed, tears gathering. This was the mic drop moment I had dreamed of. Backstage, children approached me. One asked, "Will you help us write?" I knelt, meeting each eager gaze. "Yes. Start with your truth. Your voice is your power." Later, Toby waited in the wings, eyes warm with pride. "You were incredible," he whispered, pulling me close. "Together we stand." The applause still echoed as we walked off stage, hand in hand. That night, I returned home carrying a worn copy of my memoir. I placed it beside a blank journal on the coffee table. Candlelight flickered over the title, "When Your Husband Thinks You're His Shadow." The final chapter one shared today was not an end, it was a beginning. Tomorrow I would write new stories for those searching for their voices in the dark. In the stillness of my apartment, I replayed the day's moments. I opened the journal and wrote a new prompt. What lights your fire? The question burned within me. Every story remains unfinished until we choose to write the pages blank. So I embraced what came next. Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe, and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.